The cold does not arrive suddenly here. It settles. It strips the air of moisture and sound until the world feels reduced to essentials. This is not the cold of storms or spectacle. It is a deeper absence, a cold that removes rather than attacks. Across the frozen margins of the planet, where ice dominates land and sky, humans have lived not against the cold, but within it. Long before borders carved these regions into nations, before satellites traced white expanses from orbit, people learned how to read ice as others read roads. They learned how to move with it, how to trust it, and how to respect its limits. Survival here was never about conquering the environment. It was about belonging to it. In the far north of Russia, the tundra stretches outward like an endless ocean of snow and wind. There are no obvious landmarks, no trees, no mountains to guide the eye. To an outsider, it appears empty. To the nets, it is densely mapped. Reindeer herds lead them across frozen lakes and rivers along routes shaped by centuries of repetition. Their homes, chums, rise quickly and vanish just as fast, designed not for permanence, but for movement. Staying too long risks starvation. Moving too fast invites disaster. Every migration is calculated. Ice thickness, wind direction, animal behavior, all are read instinctively, passed down through generations. Children learn balance on snow before they learn distance. Elders interpret subtle shifts in texture and sound that signal danger long before cracks appear. Here, ice remembers mistakes, and people remember ice. Farther east, where the Arctic Ocean presses against the Siberian coast, the world refuses to settle. Sea ice forms and fractures constantly, reshaping the boundary between land and water. This is the homeland of the Chukchi, hunters and herders whose lives depend on adaptability. Reindeer move inland across tundra, shaped by wind. Along the coast, marine life surfaces through shifting ice. Survival demands fluency in both worlds. Storms arrive without warning. The sea freezes, breaks, and reforms in unpredictable patterns. Knowledge here is carried in stories. Legends explain where ice thins, when storms rise, and how tides behave beneath frozen surfaces. Every story encodes geography. Every ritual preserves instruction. In a land where mistakes are fatal, memory becomes infrastructure. Across northern Fennoscandia, beneath skies illuminated by aurora, the Sami endure winters defined by darkness. Weeks pass without sunrise. Cold settles into forests and river valleys. Reindeer move through snow-laden trees, guided by herders whose relationship with the land is intimate and exact. Fishing, hunting, herding, each depends on balance. Rivers are not resources, they are lifelines. Forests are not obstacles, they are shelter. Borders arrived late here, drawn and redrawn by distant powers. Yet Sami culture persisted, adapting without dissolving. Resilience here is quiet. It lives in language, in ritual, in daily work. Deeper into Siberia, the Dolgan inhabit landscapes locked in permafrost. The ground beneath their feet never fully thaws. Rivers become highways in winter, barriers in summer. Timing governs everything. Hunting, fishing, herding, every skill must be exact. Waste is dangerous. Excess is impossible. Oral history carries weight because it works. Stories teach when to travel, where to cross, what to avoid. Farther south, Along the Lena River basin, the Yakut endures some of the coldest inhabited places on Earth. Winter temperatures plunge so low that exposed skin freezes instantly. Metal shatters, breath crystallizes, yet life persists. Horses and cattle survive alongside reindeer, animals shaped by centuries of adaptation. Shelter is built thick and deliberate. Every structure reflects physics rather than aesthetics. Yakut legends preserve memory through myth, binding generations through shared endurance. Across the Arctic Ocean, the Inuguit live at the northern edge of Greenland, where darkness dominates half the year. For months, the sun never rises. Ice becomes the only reference point, thick, mobile, unpredictable. Community matters here more than anywhere. Isolation kills, food is shared, stories maintain bonds through endless night. Ice is not scenery, it is structure. In eastern Siberia, the Koryak inhabit a land of contradiction, volcanic mountains beside frozen rivers, Pacific winds colliding with tundra. They move between coastal life and inland hunting with practiced ease. Ice is read like language, tides are memorized. Survival depends on understanding motion, never assuming stillness. Within the Siberian taiga, the Evenki navigate forests and rivers, stretching endlessly. They are trackers and hunters whose relationship with wilderness feels timeless. Reindeer move beneath towering trees, rivers freeze and open again. Harmony here is not philosophy, it is survival. Taking more than needed means losing everything later. Across the Pacific, in the Aleutian Islands, ice gives way to sea. Volcanic peaks rise from restless water. Storms arrive without warning. The Aleut mastered this chaos through innovation, kayaks shaped for waves, navigation guided by currents and stars. Survival here depends on motion. Stillness is illusion. Different lands, different languages, one shared truth. Ice does not erase humanity, it shapes it. Across these frozen worlds, humans did not arrive to dominate the environment. They arrived to understand it, to accept its authority, to adapt to its limits. But now, those limits are shifting. Ice that once behaved predictably changes faster. Rivers freeze later. Sea ice thins. Migration routes alter. Knowledge refined over centuries struggles to keep pace with acceleration. These communities notice before satellites do, yet they remain, not as relics of the past, but as witnesses. They remind us that survival is not about strength, but relationship, not about control, but understanding. The frozen world has never been empty. It has never been silent. It has always been inhabited by those who learn to listen. And as the modern world looks northward, searching for answers in melting ice and changing climates, these lives offer something deeper than data. They offer memory. Because here, at the edge of habitability, humanity learned its oldest lesson, that survival is not about conquering nature, but knowing when to follow it. In that knowing, a different kind of intelligence emerges, one shaped not by dominance, but by observation. Across frozen lands, survival has never been about forcing the world to bend. It has been about bending just enough to remain unbroken. The ice teaches this slowly. It teaches patience first. In places where daylight disappears for months, time stretches beyond urgency. The human body adjusts, sleep shifts, hunger recalibrates, the mind learns to wait. In these environments, rushing is not ambition, it is danger. Every decision carries weight because the margin for error is thin and consequences are immediate. Here, nature does not negotiate. Wind sculpts the land without pause. Snow accumulates where it is allowed and vanishes where it is not. Rivers freeze with authority, sealing pathways or opening them, depending on season and temperature. Ice listens to physics alone, and humans who endure have learned to listen back. For generations, this listening shaped movement. Camps were placed where wind could not strip heat. Paths followed contours invisible to outsiders. Shelters were built not for permanence, but for efficiency, thick enough to resist cold, light enough to be dismantled without waste. Every design choice reflected an understanding that survival was a conversation, not a command. The frozen world does not reward stubbornness. It rewards awareness. In these places, food is never assumed. It is earned through skill and restraint. Hunting is deliberate, never excessive. Fishing follows cycles that ensure return. Herding adapts to terrain rather than forcing terrain to yield. To take more than needed is to invite imbalance, and imbalance here leads quickly to loss. This ethic did not come from philosophy. It came from consequence. Across the Arctic and subarctic, elders remember seasons when ice behaved differently, when storms arrived earlier, when rivers froze later, when migration routes shifted unexpectedly. These memories are not archived in data sets. They live in stories, gestures, and cautionary tales repeated until they become instinct. But the rhythm of the ice is changing. What once shifted gradually now accelerates. Sea ice that held firm for generations thinned sooner each year. Rivers that froze reliably now hesitate, leaving communities uncertain when to cross. Snow falls differently. Wind patterns shift. The frozen world no longer follows the same rules it once did, and the people who know it best feel the difference first. These changes are subtle at first, then they compound. A crossing that was safe last year becomes dangerous this one. A hunting season shortens. An animal arrives earlier, or not at all. The land still speaks, but its language grows harder to predict. Knowledge refined over centuries is forced to adapt in decades, and yet these communities remain observant rather than alarmed. They do not see change as betrayal. They see it as a signal. Adaptation has always been part of survival here. Ice has never been static. It has always advanced and retreated, hardened and softened, reshaped coastlines, and redirected rivers. What feels unprecedented is not change itself, but its speed. Speed compresses wisdom. When shifts occur faster than memory can absorb, even the most resilient systems strain. The frozen world becomes less forgiving, not because it grows hostile, but because it moves beyond expectation. Still, life persists. In the quiet moments between storms, children learn by watching. They observe how elders test ice, how they read clouds, how they pause before committing to a path. These lessons are not taught directly. They are absorbed through repetition, through presence, through patience. Knowledge here is embodied. It lives in the body's response to cold, in the ear's sensitivity to shifting wind, in the eye's ability to detect subtle changes in snow texture. It is not abstract, it is lived. Across these frozen regions, the relationship between humans and ice remains reciprocal. The land provides, but only when respected. The ice supports, but only when trusted carefully. Survival depends on cooperation with forces far larger than any individual. This understanding shapes worldview. In the frozen world, humanity is not central. It is contextual. People exist within systems, not above them. They measure success not by accumulation, but by continuity. The ability to endure another season, another winter, another migration. Continuity is victory. This perspective stands in contrast to modern assumptions. Elsewhere, nature is often framed as resource or obstacle. Here, it is authority. Here, it sets terms that cannot be negotiated away. And yet, this authority is not cruel. The frozen world is honest. It reveals its dangers openly. Cracks appear visibly. Storms announce themselves with sound and movement. Ice does not deceive. It demands attention. Those who survive do so not because they are stronger, but because they pay attention longer. This is perhaps the most important lesson carried by these lands. Listening is survival. Listening to wind, listening to silence, listening to patterns repeated across years. As the modern world searches for solutions to a changing climate, it often looks outward, toward technology, prediction models, distant interventions. But the frozen world suggests a different approach. Look closer. Those who have lived here longest have never sought to control ice. They sought to understand its behavior and adjust accordingly. They accepted uncertainty as constant, not failure. They prepared for unpredictability rather than assuming stability. This mindset does not prevent change, but it softens its impact. It allows communities to remain flexible, to respond without panic, to adapt without erasing identity. These cultures have survived centuries of external pressure, shifting borders, and environmental extremes precisely because they are not rigid. Rigidity breaks in cold. Flexibility endures. The frozen world teaches this lesson again and again in every crack, every drift, every shifting horizon. It teaches that endurance is not resistance, it is responsiveness. As ice continues to change, the question is not whether the frozen world will disappear, but whether humanity will remember how to live within limits. The land does not ask for solutions. It asks for respect. And respect begins with listening. Listening to those who have always been here. Listening to landscapes that do not shout. Listening to slow signals that precede collapse or renewal. The frozen world has always been a teacher, not through instruction, but through consequence. It reveals what happens when balance is maintained and what happens when it is ignored. Across these vast white spaces, where sound fades and time stretches, the lesson remains unchanged. Survival is not dominance, it is relationship, not conquest, but continuity. And as ice continues its ancient work, freezing, fracturing, reforming, it carries forward a record far older than humanity. A memory written in layers, preserved in silence, waiting for those willing to listen long enough to understand. In the end, the frozen world does not ask humanity to save it. It asks humanity to remember. To remember how to move carefully, how to observe patiently, how to follow rather than force. Because here, at the edge of habitability, where ice shapes every decision and silence carries weight, the oldest truth remains. Those who endure are not the ones who conquer nature, but the ones who learn again and again how to follow it.